Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for November 22nd, 2024. I'm Benji Fisher, sharing my screen and moderating, and also present are Ralph Kohler, Anmol Goel, and Simo Helston. So we decided to look today at issue 288-1892, UX Hide Entity ID in Autocomplete Widget. And I haven't looked at this issue recently, but I think I saw some discussion either at work or on Slack uh, that I think is basically this issue. So when using an autocomplete widget, Drupal adds the entity ID in brackets after the entity name. The entity ID is unique, but the text label for that entity may not be. So adding the ID ensures the user will choose the right thing and that the right thing gets passed back to Drupal. And there's a little screenshot. When you enable a language, you get the IDs. I'm not sure. Those are language objects. People often ask why this number in brackets is here, or wonder what it means, or assume it's something else. Some people ask for it to be removed. This has happened to me on 4 different projects, and now I search for it. It would seem I'm not alone. I'm going to skip those quotes. Shall we see if we can fix it? So proposed resolution and workarounds. 1, hide it with JavaScript. 2, use views instead. 3, change the value display to be more descriptive, like term name ID 123 instead of term name paren 123. See comment number 40. And then there are several contrib modules that change the behavior. Then there are links to some related core issues, one of which is needs work, one of which is closed and fixed, one of which is closed as a duplicate. So maybe we should update the issue summary and replace that with whatever it's a duplicate of. Some support requests, some links to Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange. The contrib entity reference module. So I guess these are issues for entity reference. Yes. The link it module uses its own autocomplete field in the widget and offers the option to use tokens to add metadata. Other contrib issues. So let's see if we can sort of illustrate this issue. I'll post into the Zoom chat. There's a link to, oops, I should have removed the query string. In fact, I should have removed more than that. There. You can log in to this site as admin/admin. So I guess it's what content types in Umami have reference fields? And does article? It has a tags field. I don't think that would use an entity reference. Here we go. The media image and tags and recipe category. So let's try editing. Where is content on this menu? Here we go, content.
Weird.
And what did I say? I wanted to look at a recipe node. So let's filter on recipe. And I prefer English. And let's edit one. Here we go. So yeah, even in vocabulary terms, you have this mysterious 25, which I think everyone on this call recognizes is the term ID. Um, and if you want to add something else here, um, dessert, it'll autocomplete and show 10. So that is the somewhat confusing number that's added in the autocomplete field that this issue is about. Any questions about the context of this issue? What problem it is we're trying to solve? Okay. Um, any initial thoughts before we look at the discussion that's already on the issue? Any thoughts about how to solve it? Like one of the suggestions was to add something like that. Any better ideas?
Okay.
Okay, so
I
let's
think we
see.
should hide this number.
Say that again.
I think we should, hide this number if that's feasible.
Yeah, the problem with totally hiding it is that, um, let's see, if do structure, taxonomy.
Yeah, duplicate, names.
Yeah, there's nothing to stop someone from adding dessert. There is another term with the same name. So that's in the description field that no one ever looks at, but just so I can tell them apart. Um, and then here I'll do a force reload of the page. And if I add, where is that field again? Well, this is not helpful because the number doesn't appear until I select one of the two, and only then do I see the disambiguation. So that's a further problem.
Still
But
don't know what kind of dessert it is. What TD10 and TD23 or 44 is in comparison.
right.
And
So
on the issue, there is in comment number 9 the example with Georgia, the country, and Georgia, the US state.
so that's more realistic than what I came up with off the top of my head as a quick example.
Yeah.
So I think there's that we need some way to see what we have. Um, so this, by the way, is a pretty old problem. This discussion goes back to 2017. Um, so comment number 9, there are several problems. One, people don't know what the numbers mean. Users can't distinguish two entities based on the title or name alone. And as Ralph mentioned, Ifrit points out, there's Georgia, the country, and Georgia, the US state. Um, Site builders have no way of configuring the display, so they aren't able to exclude or hide the ID if it is appropriate for a specific site. Um, so aren't these things that you can do if instead of a simple autocomplete widget you use a views entity select? Go ahead, Ralph.
Just one additional comment about the points Ifrik made.
Go ahead.
If you take into consideration that the user knows what the ID is, the concept, is behind that idea, then still I would personally have a hard time with your example with the dessert, just having the dessert 10 and dessert 32 or 36 or what it was, to remember what basically the context for each number is. That puts a cognitive load on the user remembering or knowing in the first place what each number stands for to distinguish.
Yeah, for me it would be very useful to be able to configure the field so that you could select could configure the field so that it could display different kinds of information. So it could be well, for me it's nodes, so it could be node ID, but it would be also in some context to be real use cases. It would be useful to know the author or the node. So, for instance, a concrete example: my wife has a site that has something like 10,000 registered dogs information, and with 10,000 dogs, I try to translate it into English context. So in 10,000 dogs, there's bound to be 50 dogs that are named Spot, but usually no single user or single owner names two of their dogs Spot. So the distinguishing information would be whose dog that is. So that could be done with views, but also it would be useful to know it to be able to configure it so that it could display information about the author or about the actual term, but it's going beyond the scope maybe. But it would be useful to be able to distinguish what information it is, or alternatively to have the additional information use as little space as possible, so to leave that label of sort away from it, depending on the use case, because sometimes a lot of space is required, and then in some cases the people who use the form know what it means. So having a default that displays the type and the type of the identification number, and then possibility to configure it.
Yes, there definitely has to have to be more configuration options. Ralph gave you a thumbs up early in that comment. And Ralph, you want to say something more?
Yep. I think you just one brief comment building on Simo's suggestion. A great idea. And also he made a valid case why it's necessary with that spot example. And I think if things are configurable, then maybe it would be a good idea to have some sort of automatic adjusted description that is based on that made setting, so people know what's basically shown in the parentheses after the tag.
Yeah, so I'm always in support of giving site builders more options. I see Simo has said token support in the chat. Yeah, that's certainly something that could be considered, but I think not everyone is familiar with the options already available, and it takes more work. But let's go to Manage Form Display, and actually let's go to the article, which doesn't have quite so many fields. but it does also have field tags. So let's manage, no, not display, form display for the article field and tags. So I think autocomplete. Oh, that's right. There's two different types of autocomplete. I'm not seeing the option to use a view. I was pretty sure that was in core. Am I confusing things? Am I thinking of the entity browser contrib module?
Is it configuration option for autocomplete, or is it a field? I think it's a field setting.
Is
It
it?
might be field setting.
Okay. I would be surprised if it was. Type of item to reference, allowed number of values, help text. Reference. You're right. That's really weird. I would never look for this on the field configuration. No eligible views are found. Create a view with an entity reference display.
Are there any cases where we can define field validation at display level apart from some contrib modules like Maxline? Because I think that's something it's validated against also.
Um, so certainly numeric fields, you can add validation. I don't think in core there's any validation for reference fields. Select a tag, show taxonomy terms. So as I said, this is more work. And I don't want a page, I don't want a block. I guess the next step is where I get to choose an entity reference display. And why is it giving me an error message? All right, so I need, what do I need to do next? I'm going to add the description. Um, so let's just accept the defaults and then filter criteria. Do I need search fields? Oh, let me sort by name. Um, where is this where the search fields would go? Ah, yes. Okay. So let me save this now and then go back to, was it Simo who pointed out that this is the right page to look for it? I'm going to force reload this page. Use, oh, is this? Yeah, this is tags. View to be used. The only one available. View arguments, set default value. Save settings. And now when I go to edit the page, again, force reload. Oh, but this was a recipe. So I want to go back to content and edit an article. Why am I not seeing the taxonomy field? Here we go. So this has a bunch of tags just for the sake of, oh, maybe I still have to edit the form display as well. Okay, so now at least I have the two options and they are disambiguated by whatever I chose in that view I created. And if I did additional work on the view, I could, you know, change the display so it wouldn't be this two line with the ugly dash. But this is what's possible in core.
If it's using views, does it show it on the when it's selected?
I think not. I think oh, it's still going to show the little dash there. Oh, so maybe it does.
So
Yes.
in this case, if the view is configured meaningfully, then it might be also we need to be able to hide the number even in case there are duplicates, because the duplicates could be handled at another level.
Yes. So um so so it takes more work, but core already provides a solution for most of the problems. Like before I did this, there was no way to decide when I was choosing these two. There was no way to recognize which one was which, not even the entity ID. The entity ID is a terrible way for a user to distinguish the two. Um, but Core does provide this method, so you can do whatever is appropriate for your site. So I think this is already in Core, so we don't need to fix the problems that this already fixes. But what we should do is provide an option to hide the entity ID. If I've already added information in my entity view to show which is which, then we really don't need the 10 in the entity IDs in parentheses. Um, Depending on the use case, as Simo gave an example, the site administrator, the site builder might decide that we're not going to have two terms called dessert in the same vocabulary. And in that case, it's just additional confusing information. So it seems to me that all we need to do is provide an option not to display the entity ID. Does that seem right?
Yeah, and also actually back to dogs. Dogs have different breeds,
Yes.
and in the Federation Kennel International, they have these numbers for each breed. Some of them have sub numbers as well. So
Oh,
if it would be dog breeds, then it would make sense to have in parentheses the International Kennel Federation classification number. So that would be confusing.
that's right. And that's something you could add with an entity view display, but
Yeah,
then
or
it
actually
can,
even in the term name. But yeah, could be also in the field. So yeah.
right? So that would be a really good disambiguation, and it would be really confusing to have both numbers. There are a bunch more comments, and I'm a little nervous about adding our own comment without reviewing what's already been said on this. In fact, Aaron commented on the issue. some time ago. Relatively recently, we were looking at comments from 2017. This one is only a year and a half old. Roy and Aaron had further comments. So I'd like to have a look at the current state of the issue. I wonder whether the recent work is described in the issue summary. But I think I'd like to take that on. After all, I was the one who suggested we talk about this today. And unless I see other arguments against it, I think our recommendation is quite simple, to provide an option not to show it. And just to be clear, manage form display.
Benji,
Yes,
if you go to comment number 57,
57. Yes.
as you can see, the approach there seems with this patch, even when show IDs is set to false, they will still appear if there are duplicate titles. I imagine distinguishing duplicate titles was why this was added to begin with. And yeah, and one thing to note, I've already pasted it in the chat a while ago. The merge request that is available there is you're unable to check out. I run into a fatal error. Branch named 11.x already exists.
Okay, so there's something technically wrong with how the merge request has been set up for this issue. But yeah, but this approach seems like what we're suggesting with I guess an added thing that it seems to be checking for uniqueness, and even if you say don't show the ID, it will show the ID to disambiguate. That seems sort of complicated. But yeah, I'm willing to read through at least the recent comments. I guess when did people start talking about this again? May 2023. So this is August 2022. So from August 2020 to August 2022, there weren't very many comments. I'm willing to go back at least this far. Go ahead.
In comment number 63, Roy provided an outline of steps potential and commented further on comment number 67.
Reduce confusion, add ID colon 123. Forcing it to show in case of duplicates seems like the right thing to do. UI number 52 looks reasonable. Go ahead.
Yeah, if this would be used together with the contrib module commerce, would it display as ID? Would it display variation ID or product ID? So some contrib modules use several IDs. So there would need to be some defining to do which IDs. Depending on what we are referencing.
So yeah, with the commerce module, you have products and you have product variations, and then you're saying that you might want to show the ID of the product rather than of the variation. That seems like the sort of thing that you could do with the entity view.
Yeah, that could be.
So yeah, Roy has good points. And which other one? Roy's next comment, number 67.
Yeah, and it refers to comment number 52 with the UI, that checkbox show entity ID.
Yeah, that seems pretty close to what we agreed to. Um, so I think we're all pretty much in agreement then. And this needs some dev work so that the merge request actually works. You can check out the feature branch. If we scroll down, I mean, this isn't a usability question. This is an implementation question. Yeah, that's you're supposed to come up with a new branch name rather than calling it 11.x, but it should presumably not be too hard to fix that. And it definitely needs an issue summary because the issue summary suggests all of these possible solutions. And that has to be rewritten now that we seem to have consensus. So I think at this point we're just reinforcing the consensus, and we need to do some work on the issue summary and the merge request. Go ahead, Ralph.
Just one detail. I still wanted to re-emphasize on the point in regards of the description. If you provide that level of flexibility, providing the option to show entity ID or not show entity ID and use views and so forth, the description for the tag field where the tag is entered by the user should basically dynamically reflect those settings, that the user has the contextual awareness and situational awareness, what the output and what the setting there is. Otherwise, it might be confusing. In particular, in between different sites, Drupal sites, if someone is jumping in between, it might be complicated. Because at the moment, the description is just specific to what is entered, not about the setting and the circumstances.
So are you saying that whatever decision is made in the display of this field, whether or not to show the ID, that should also be made in these choices?
No. Could you just select anything that the selection field is gonna yeah, just pick one. Yeah. And I'm referring to the enter a comma separated list, for example, vegetarian chocolate brownies appetizers. And there should be also some information about what the settings are. Basically what if an ID is shown, what that ID refers to, and what's, for example, the pattern with dessert dash, there is another term, what there is another term is, and what dessert is. That someone is able to decipher the information there. And otherwise, it would be confusing from my point of view.
I see. So if someone is using an entity view display as we are now, then it's impossible to programmatically come up with a description of what it's showing. But I think what this description text could say is some explanation of what the number in parentheses means if it's there. So this description could be customized so that if we do show entity IDs, it mentions that, and if we don't show entity IDs, then it just says the current text. Do you think that's enough?
At least the start. Yeah.
Okay. So make the description text sensitive to the option selected. Go ahead, Simo.
Yeah. If there is going to be some detecting duplicates, for implementation, I think it probably is default functionality there, but it should be like checked that it only checks duplicates from those entities where the user has access to. So if there would be like 3 different desert tags, but only the user only has access to one of them, so it shouldn't show it shouldn't be considered a duplicate in this case. So it probably checks the access before adding any of those if it's automated. But
Yeah,
just to make sure.
okay, yeah, there's a good chance that it's already implemented that way. And I was also thinking that for performance reasons, it might be a really bad idea to search all available entities for duplicates, and that would also be addressed by your suggestion that if we first find the lists that we're going to show to the user and then search for duplicates only in that list, it'll be good for performance and it'll also be good for the reasons you gave. So I suspect it's already done that way. Ralph?
Just one technical question. +1, what Simo said, but technically, is it possible that you have setup-wise that you have 2 different editors? Let's say one is admin, the other is just content editor, and they have access to a different scope of tags, so that editor 1 has a different set of tags available than editor 2 for a content type, or is that not possible at all? That scenario.
This widget can be used for nodes, and then if they are only able to access their own nodes, or maybe it's they are able to access content where they are referenced. So that could be also extended to tags. So if tags reference a user in a field, it could be used to build access. So yeah, it's possible.
It would be okay. Thank you.
So why do you ask?
It was more out of curiosity.
Okay.
And also a slight worry that could lead into surprising outcomes from a editor perspective. If I am, for example, an editor on with a certain set of tags available, it would feel odd that someone else writing on the same content type, creating a node, and who is adding tags I'm not able to reach and access. So it feels inconsistent. So, yeah.
Well, of course, complicated situations will sometimes require complicated solutions. And in that case, there is the option people often overlook this, but when you're managing the form display, you can have more than one form type or given content type, and you can make one
Yes.
available to more privileged users and another available to less privileged users. So I guess the only common example of this is that for user entities, we have the add user form and we have the registration form, and those are different. But Drupal lets us add form types for anything. Display modes, form modes, for media, user. I could add a form mode for taxonomy terms. So yeah, for complicated situations, there are complicated solutions that are already possible. We have a few minutes left before the end of the hour. Is there anything more to be said on this issue? If not, then let's end the meeting a few minutes early. Thanks all for coming. I will try to pay some attention to this over the weekend, and I'll also look at your comments, Ralph, in Slack from previous meetings.
Thank you.
And make sure you update all your Drupal sites because we had security releases this week.
And read up on gadget chain.
Yes. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye. Have a nice
Yeah,
weekend.
thanks. Bye.